Yeah, so one night I went out to a club, me and a couple of friends went out to a club, and as I'm queuing up now, you know, I went up to the doorman, and this doorman was a brother. He was a Riva brother, and he looked at my ID and he said, "Akhi, you're a Muslim?" I said, "Yes, I am Muslim." Yeah. He was, "Akhi, what are you doing here in this club?" And I looked at him. I said, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be working here." And he started laughing. He goes, "Akhi, yeah, wallah, you're right." He goes, "You're right. You're spot on there. But look what I'm telling you, Akhi," he said to me. I said to him, I was thinking to myself, and actually I've never had that, you know, like growing up in Sweden, we never had, like, you know, people calling us Akhi and this kind of stuff. You know, this is kind of, you know, it's kind of new for me. So we started talking, and you know, Baba was talking to me. He said, "Akhi, you know, I've been working for a long time, and you know, I don't want to see Muslims come in here because of the things that happens in here." And the Baba was really talking from his heart, you know, and that for me is strong, because you know, I think this Baba doesn't know me, and he's giving me advice, and he generally seems that he's interested, you know, he wants good for me. So I said, "Akhi, okay, I will think about that, you know, when I'm in there, I will think about it." He goes, "No, Akhi." He goes, "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in," he said. I said, "Why? What have I done?" He said, "Akhi, I'm sorry, but you know, I like you seem a good brother, but nah, I'm not letting you in, Akhi." He said, "But take my number, and then, you know, we can link up, like, you know, when I'm not working." So I said, "Bro, I don't want to link up with you, I just want to go into the club."
Since I've come to Tawheed, and I've read about the companions and the Salaf and everyone else, I know who I am. I'm the creation of Allah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. My name is Abdul Hamid, and I'm originally from Iran. This is my birthplace where I was born. I was raised in a Shia family. Growing up, my family, my father, he used to always take me to we used to call it Husseyniyat, which may be translated as masjid. And my father, he was a well-known person within our community in Iran. In the city we were born, we were well off. Alhamdulillah, we had everything that we needed. He had a good job. You know, he raised us well. He took care of us. During the early 80s, a war broke out between Iraq and Iran, where I lived. So we had to leave the country. So me and my mother and my brothers, we left for Sweden. Now, my father at the time, you know, he could not leave for, you know, certain reasons. So he stayed, he still stayed in the country. Now, once we came to Sweden, here, you know, obviously being without a father, being raised by a single mother, by herself, and plus have another brother as well, it was not easy for my mother to cope with. You know, you come to a new country, there's new customs, and it's a very secular country where, you know, religion is not really looked positively upon, so to speak. Now, growing up, I wasn't actually, you know, told about Islam very much by my parents. Growing up in Sweden was a time where for your deen wise, it doesn't really have a good positive effect on you. I mean, although I was always identify myself as a Muslim, I always, you know, believed that there's a creator. I really didn't really know how we should worship that creator. I grew up in a very secular / Christian area, and the Christians that I, you know, got to know, that I grew up with as a child, you know, area, they were predominantly Arab Christians from Muslim countries. Now, growing up with people that, you know, were Christians from Arab background, they usually did not have a good opinion about Muslims. So they would always hammer me about Islam, always hammer me about things that they perceive to be bad about Islam, and I never knew how to defend it because back then I had no knowledge, and I was just when a person doesn't know, the best the way he reacts to ignorance is that he gets angry. So I would always brush off, but eventually when you start hearing all the time things about your religion, about things that you love, subconsciously you start to believe it. Okay, although I believed I was a Muslim, yeah, I believe I came from a Muslim family, but because the family never taught me about the deen, the Islam, I had no way to defend it in the best way I could. So growing up now in Sweden in a kind of environment where my dad was not with us, he was still back in Iran. I got into a lot of trouble with the police, and because a mother, she cannot always, obviously my mother was always working all the time, and when you have no parents to watch over you, it's very easy to kind of slip into that kind of environment where you get into trouble with the police and these kind of things. So I did have a lot of problems, and I ended up leaving the house. My mom, she ended up telling me that that she could not bear with me no more, and from then on I lived by myself. From the age of 19 years old, I was living by myself. Now when you're 19 years old, that young, the last thing that you think about is studying or going to school. All you're gonna do is hanging around, throwing parties at your house, being with your friends and these kind of things. So from then on, it just went downwards for me, and my family eventually ended up moving to England. Yeah, so one night I went out to a club, me and a couple of friends went out to a club, and as I'm queuing up now, I went up to the doorman, and this doorman was a brother. He was a Riva brother, and he looked at my ID and he said, "Akhi, you're a Muslim?" I said, "Yes, I'm Muslim." Yeah. He was, "Akhi, what are you doing here in this club?" And I looked at him. I said, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be working here." And he started laughing. He goes, "Akhi, yeah, wallah, you're right." He goes, "You're right. You're spot on there. But look what I'm telling you, Akhi," he said to me. And I said to him, I was thinking to myself, and actually I've never had that, like growing up in Sweden, we never had like, people calling us Akhi and this kind of stuff. This is kind of, it's kind of new for me. So we started talking, and Baba was talking to me. He said, "Akhi, I've been working for a long time, and I don't want to see Muslims come in here because of the things that happens in here." And the Baba was really talking from his heart, and that for me showed me, because I think this Baba doesn't know me, and he's giving me advice, and he generally seems that he's interested, he wants good for me. So I said, okay, I will think about that, when I'm in there, I will think about it. He goes, no, Akhi. He goes, "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in," he said. I said, "Why? What have I done?" He said, "Akhi, I'm sorry, but I like you seem a good brother, but nah, I'm not letting you in, Akhi." He said, "But take my number, and then we can link up, like when I'm not working." So I said, "Well, I don't want to link up with you, I just want to go into the club." He said, "Nah, Akhi, sorry." So anyway, I ended up taking the brother's number, we started having a little laugh, this and back and forth. I thought the guy, he's just generally looking after me. So 2-2s now. I called him up following week. He said to me, "Come to my gym while I'm training." So he was training in a boxing in a boxing club. Now I was growing up, I was doing boxing all my life, so I said, "Yeah, why not? I'm up for that." So now following week I went up, I linked to the brother, we linked him up, and we started training. And at this point he's not really talking about Islam or anything to me now. We're just training, we're just having a laugh, this and that. And after the training now, he said to me, "Akhi, I have to go pray. I'm sorry, do you want to come join me to pray?" I said, I don't know how to pray. I said to him. He goes, don't worry, just follow me whatever I do. Just follow my moves. I said, nah, I said, you know, I don't feel pure. I don't feel clean, you know. I don't feel like, you know, and all these kind of excuses. He goes, you know, if you think like that, he said to me, he goes, you will never reach there anyway, because you cannot be pure the way you say or clean unless you pray. So alright. So he's praying, I just follow him. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going up and down, my head behind the floor, whatever. So I said to him, you know, I need to learn this, how to pray. You know, I said, can you teach me? He goes, don't worry, Akhi. He goes, go to this bookshop, he said to me, and buy this book from that guy or this DVD, he will teach us how to pray. So I went in there and I asked, you know, the manager of the shop, I said, you know, can you teach me how to pray? I want to know how to pray. He said, fine, no problem. He goes, you know, here's the book, here's the DVD. I started looking at little books, you know, I started scanning out the books and everything. And there was one book that caught my attention, that the owner, that the brother, he said to me that you should look for this book as well. And the book was called The Fundamentals of Tawheed. So I got the books, you know, I went home and I started reading it. I read, you know, this book, and it was as if, you know, like a light bulb just switched on top of my head, you know. When I read it, when I understood, you know, when I got a glance about what Tawheed really means, you know, this was something for me that was, you know, I had never ever, you know, experienced before. Because growing up as a Shia Muslim, you know, for us, Tawheed really meant tawassul, intercession. That, you know, we don't really call upon Allah directly, and this is a big difference that I realized there and then, that what I was taught previously about Islam was completely different from what I see, you know, what the Quran says and what the Sunnah explains. So, you know, I started thinking, wow, you know, this is amazing, you know, like I never knew this, like, you know, that you should call upon Allah. So I remember as a kid, you know, as a child, my father used to always take me to the grave of Khomeini. And Khomeini, he was the father of the Iranian Revolution. So I remember even back then, you know, people used to go to his grave, they used to kiss his grave, ask for him in his grave. And even back then, I remember thinking that, you know, even asking my father, I said, you know, Dad, you know, is he dead or is he alive? And my father said, well, he's dead. I said, so why are these people asking him if he's dead? And my father, you know, bless him, he didn't really know what to say. You know, he would just say that, don't ask too many questions, and that's that. So I always had this back in my head, you know, like even growing up, you know, we was told that you should, whenever you do something, you should invoke the Imams, the 12 Imams. So you should say when you get up from bed, Ya Ali, or you say Ya Hussein and Ya Hassan. And never ever will be taught that, you know, you should only ask Allah and you should only pray to Allah. So now this for me was where I kind of woke up, to be honest, that when I read the Quran also, because all the things from the book was reference to the Quran. Now this is the big thing now, because when you read the Quran, you know, you realize that Islam is only about worship of Allah alone, you know. And when you worship Allah alone, that's when you find true happiness. So I started reading more and more, but at the same time, you know, I was also, you know, obviously still in Jahiliyyah. You know, I had a lot of problems. I had, you know, a lot issue with debt, you know, bailiffs and, you know, hassle and bustle back and forth. You know, I was still drinking a lot. But I remember always, you know, when I used to come home from the clubs, drunk, I had a Quran in my room, and I remember the pain I used to have always inside, you know, from all the problems that I had. You know, money was gone, you know, I had bailiffs, people after me, wanted them back their money because I lent a lot of money from people. And I remember always I used to pick up the Quran, and subhanAllah, you know, whenever I used to just flick up the page, anything that I was reading at that particular time was, you know, related to me at what I was going through at that time. So for example, if I was drunk, I would open the book and it would say, you know, don't come near or don't drink alcohol, yeah, and don't touch khamr, don't go near it, for it's the work of shaitan, you know. And it was just, I would just read it randomly like that, and I was saying subhanAllah. So things like this, you know, it's, you know, I felt more and more connection. The more I read the Quran, the closer I felt to Allah. And from then on, you know, I started praying. I learned how to pray. So I would go to the Shia Masjid. And I remember now, the way I learned to pray was the way most Muslims know to pray. Majority of Muslims, where they pray with their hands folded. So I would go to the Shia Masjid and I would pray like this, and I would get funny looks from people. So I'm thinking, you know, why people look at me funny. But it wasn't until, you know, that slowly, eventually, when, you know, the more I studied, the more I learned, I realized that when you look at both the sects, which one made the rational sense? The more I started looking in between the differences between both the Sunni and the Shia doctrines, you know, I realized quickly that what we were told, you know, from our parents within the Shia doctrine really had no textual evidence, had no rational evidence, and basically it made no sense whatsoever. And this is the important thing, is that majority of Shias that I knew, they never really studied. They neither studied their own beliefs and they didn't study other beliefs. They just follow what their parents taught them. But the more I studied and the more I looked into it, and I realized that Islam is only about worshipping the Creator. By worshipping the Creator, you will find true happiness. And anything apart from that is misguidance. So, going to graves, asking other people for, you know, for assistance, all these kind of things, I realized that not only is it irrational, but it has no basis in Islam whatsoever. When you study Tawheed, when you understand what Tawheed is, and this is why I urge most Shias that I know, you know, any Shias, is to study Tawheed, to read Quran. Because as Shias, we never used to read Quran. Never. You know? It was not part of our life. For me, what struck me the most about Ahl Sunnah is how they emphasize on Tawheed a lot. How they emphasize that you should only turn to Allah. And this for me made sense, you know? Because it never made sense to me before that why should I ask human beings? Why should I go to graves and ask dead people? You know, this always went against my reason, always. I had difficulty accepting this. So when someone is telling me now that you should only worship Allah, only ask for Allah, you know, this to me made sense. And you know, from then on, the more I studied, the more I learned, you know, the more I came to a realization that between all of these sects that we have in Islam, there's only one truth. There's only one truth. And that truth is to worship Allah and to follow the Sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So brother, what advice would you give to a brother who's watching this right now? He may be like in a lifestyle where he smokes weed every day, drinks, hangs around people that listen to music, have girlfriends, he may have a girlfriend himself, and they believe they're too weak to ever be a practicing Muslim, and it's impossible for them to practice, especially even in London. What advice would you give to them?
If a person thinks he's weak and he can't do something, then he will never do it. If a person really wants to change, his mind has set lock on it, he will change. You know, it's all in your mind. You can change if you want to. A person that smokes and drinks, he's empty inside. he knows why he's doing it. The person who does this, if the person really truly was happy, why does he drink? Why does he smoke? He's missing something inside. That's what he does. He does these things to fill the void that's inside. So the first thing is to recognize that you have a problem and to know why you're doing this thing, smoking and drinking. Why you're doing it. That's number one. The second step is to take the action. By taking action, the first thing you do is sincere repentance. To ask Allah to make it easy for you. To make it easy for you to stop. And eventually, you know, bismillah, if the person is sincere, he really wants to, by having his trust in Allah and by his own actions, inshallah he will stop eventually. But it goes both hand in hand. So you have to have your actions, meaning that you take the effort, that you try your best to cut these things out, and you firm tawakkul, firm trust in Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Do you believe it's possible for a person to have strong iman and hang around with people that smoke, drink, and girlfriends and so forth?
No, the person, see, we believe that iman goes up and down. Iman goes up when you obey Allah, and it goes down when you disobey Allah. Every sin that you commit, when you disobey Allah, the iman goes low. Because otherwise, if you had firm iman, if you had high iman, you wouldn't sin in the first place. So although we are prone to sin, every person sins, even the best of us, and the lowest of us. But the difference is, when you sin, that you repent before Allah. And you never ever think that it's finished for you, that you have no hope. This is what Shaitan, he tries to put in people's minds. You know, his ultimate aim is to make humans believe that Allah will not forgive us. So the main thing is that, you know, have tawakkul, have trust in Allah, and have the actions. Strive towards bettering yourself. And if you do mess up, if you do slip, if you do make a sin, which we all do, then don't ever think that it's finished for you, that it's too late. Allah's mercy is endless. Allah will forgive whatever you have committed, as long as you turn to Him in repentance.
Since I've come to Tawheed and I've read about the companions and the Salaf and everyone else, I know who I am. I'm the creation of Allah.